I get lost in wrestling sometimes. The context you need before things start to make sense can be ridiculous, and never is that more true than when talking about wrestlers who refuse to take a loss. On the one hand, you have someone like Hulk Hogan, who has, quite rightfully it would seem, been lambasted for it, but when we turn to Stone Cold Steve Austin, well, no one really bats an eyelid. The reason for this is probably because of how they approach the situation. Whereas Hogan just didn't want to have his shoulders on the mat, the Rattlesnake was far more concerned about what it meant for his character and whether the plan actually made sense. It's that kind of thinking which propelled him to the top of the mountain in the first place. That doesn't mean that here and there, he just decided he didn't want to work with some individuals though. That's just par for the course in this nuts sport, entertainment, whatever. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 8 wrestlers Steve Austin refused to lose against. Number 8, Jeff Jarrett. When Jeff Jarrett returned to the WWE in 1998, there was a plan in place for him to, at some point, feud with Stone Cold. Some reports even said that was a deal breaker for Jeff. He would come back, but a program with Steve Austin had to be part of it. This is wrestling, however, so never believe that stuff. Ever. In this case, Austin just said, nope, don't want to do that, which silenced the whole ordeal. He did have his reasons, mind. Steve's main beef came from his time working in Memphis years prior, where Jeff's father Jerry reportedly lowballed him on some paydays. As such, Austin had a long-standing grudge against Jerry, something he decided to take out on his son. Additionally, Jeff annoyed Steve even more when he labelled the famous Austin 316 line as blasphemous during a promo, where he kinda went into business for himself. It's always good to take risks, but you may want to run it by the most popular guy in the company first. Either way, Austin totally refused to work with Jeff Jarrett and would even go out of his way to take shots at him when he felt like it. Given where Stone Cold was on the card, this was likely the reason that good old JEFF decided to head back to WCW when he did. Number 7, Billy Gunn. Likely happening because Austin had a feeling The Rock was planning to eviscerate Billy Gunn one evening and never allow him to recover, Steve Austin did not want to go head to head against the former member of DX. A pet project for WWE in 1999 when he won the King of the Ring, it was all designed to turn Mr. Ass into a huge star and give him a big singles push. It didn't work. Right off the back of this victory, he was meant to transition into a fight with Stone Cold, but the bionic redneck simply didn't see Billy at that level and felt like it may drag him down. There is the argument that had they worked together, Austin could have helped lift Gunn up, but that's a different article. I'm not talking about such things here. As mentioned, the New Age Outlaw would be thrown against The Rock instead, but that went even worse because of that promo. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, boy howdy, are you in for a treat. All you have to do is search The Rock Billy Gunn and it'll come up. It was like watching a dog being taken out by the woodshed and shot right in the face. Number 6, Kane. Now who knows what is true and what isn't true in this industry? There's so many rumours it's hard to keep up, but if Austin really didn't want to work with Kane, well, I don't get it. It all seems to revolve around the 1998 King of the Ring pay-per-view where Stone Cold thought it would be a bad idea for him to lose clean to the Big Red Machine. It's unlikely that would have hurt given this was the original version of Kane, a monster so terrifying it wouldn't matter who he beat. Everyone would have just nodded and gone, yeah, I'm not surprised. This oddness continues as Austin put over The Undertaker's brother on other occasions, and that character was so popular anyway, a lot of fans wanted to see Kane as the champion. But yes, the apparent original plan was for Kane to defeat Austin in a straightforward singles match, but Stone Cold didn't like the idea of that or the idea of losing the WWE title. As such, the first blood stipulation was added so that Kane could get a shady win over Austin before dropping the belt back the following night. This seems dubious to me, so I shall raise my eyebrow just a touch. It doesn't add up, especially when you remember the time period and the fact the 24-hour switcheroo garnered crazy ratings at the time. I think this was all meant to happen, as it did. Number 5, Scott Hall. Well, this one I actually understand. Most fans agree that the WWE's version of the NWO was not the one we wanted. In fact, it was barely the NWO at all and just felt sad. Like a lonely old woman eating a sandwich by herself before a seagull swoops in and steals her last bite. Heartbreaking. The bottom of this barrel was Scott Hall, a man fighting so many issues at the time it was hard not to feel sorry for him. It's no surprise he was gone just months after debuting, and clearly Austin saw the writing on the wall. When WWE brought up the idea that maybe Razor Ramon should win at WrestleMania 18, the Rattlesnake shot it down with venom. I get the reasons for this too. The New World Order needed all the credibility they could get in 2002, and a win over the biggest thing in all of wrestling would have done that. Stone Cold felt differently though, and while since he's admitted he wasn't in a good place at the time, you can't blame him for straight up saying it wasn't going down like that. As we know, this was just the start of some friction between Austin and the WWE, so maybe it's best we just brush this whole ordeal under the rug and remember the good times, okay? Okay. Let's do that. Number 4, Triple H. There are so many theories surrounding the main event of SummerSlam 99, it becomes a bit like a conspiracy theory, which is ironic given that Jesse Ventura was involved. He loves that shit. As we know, the outcome we saw was Stone Cold going in as the champion and Mick Foley leaving with that title. It is believed by many, however, that management thought Triple H should be the man to relieve Stone Cold Steve Austin of his gold instead. At any rate, Foley was added to the match to try and help out a rattlesnake that was a little worse for wear injury-wise, and while the game wasn't quite at that level, this predicament seemed like a good a time as any to pull the trigger and just see what happened. Where Austin was concerned, he agreed with the first part of that sentence just a little too much and decided a much better outcome would be for Mick to win, someone he felt deserved to have his hand raised one more time. There was logic here too. Ventura was a governor at the time, so getting him to announce a good guy as the winner helped out in that sense, and WWE just shifted the title over to Triple H 24 hours later anyway. A move that suggests that Austin potentially wasn't totally up for passing the belt to the man with 3 H's. Number 3, The Rock. The Rock is not only one of the biggest names in pro wrestling history, but probably the most successful when we start talking about what they've done throughout their careers. He's a proper Hollywood movie star now, and doesn't show any signs of slowing down. That wasn't the case back in 1997, obviously. This is why, when an on the cusp of greatness Stone Cold was asked to drop the IC title to The Rock that year, he said no. To him, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment wasn't where he needed to be, and as Austin was pretty much ready to get into bed with the likes of Mike Tyson, Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon, he wanted to protect his stock as much as he could. Instead, the belt was simply forfeited and given to The Rock, but I think it'd be hard to argue that at this time the Rattlesnake wasn't a few notches higher than Mr. Johnson. That would change, of course, and the two would have amazing matches for what felt like years, but this was a good business decision by Stone Cold. It may have helped everyone in the long run as well, given how hot this feud would eventually become. Number 2, Brock Lesnar. In one of the most famous "I ain't losing this match" fiascos in history, Steve Austin vetoed the idea of jobbing to Brock Lesnar on an episode of Monday Night Raw. Stone Cold himself has admitted he handled this wrongly when he took his so-called ball and went home, but his concerns were justified. Austin was the highest drawing superstar in the history of the business, and the plan was for him to lose cleanly to the recently arrived and still green Lesnar in an unadvertised TV match. The Rattlesnake has gone on record to say how he would have done the honors for Brock if the build was right, but to have it as a throwaway match for free on regular Monday night programming was stupid. Steve reacted badly, but he certainly had valid reasons to be annoyed. The real shame is that while WWE and Austin patched up their differences months later, we never did get to see the Beast and Stone Cold lock horns. That would have been good. Number 1, Hulk Hogan. Talk about the battle of iron wills. Austin didn't want to lose to Hogan, Hogan didn't want to lose to Austin, as two of the biggest names ever fought to keep their own flame burning the brightest. It was disappointing too, because that is really what the Hulkster should have done when he arrived back in the WWE in 2002. It must have been in the script at one point, given that Hogan fought The Rock, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Triple H and The Undertaker. If someone could have got a bit of leeway out of the pair, it would have happened. But it did not. The main reason was as said. Neither man wanted to give up the victory, so it slowly faded away into dust. For me personally, this wasn't even that upsetting when you think what we could have got instead. The Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania 18 was sublime, but the real icing on the cake would have been WWE pulling their finger out and getting Bill Goldberg through the door and having that clash on the same card. Can you imagine? Rock, Hogan, Austin, Goldberg? We'd still be talking about it today, but we're not. Because it never happened. Know of any other wrestlers Steve Austin refused to lose against? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head on over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles, and follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE.